Okay, guys, I'm going to set up a simple structure, a web application that's going to utilize structure to import files and declare and utilize some modules. So our example application is called SJS Backup, okay? And as you can see, it's just a dummy app. There's really nothing going on here. The first thing that you need is you need to drop a script tag into whatever application you want to use structure on. You need to make sure that that script tag has an ID of structureJS that is required. If it does not have that ID and we try to load our app, we'll notice that structure throws an error. The ID attribute is not set and I'm not going to work. That's basically what it's saying. Okay, so that's got to be set. All right. The next required thing is you need to point your script to the structure core. In my case, I keep a single instance of structure.js in my root web server folder. And so all of my other web applications that want to make use of structure, they simply go up one directory, so outside of their root directory, and they drop down into structure.js, into core, and then load up the core module, which is Bootstrap. Because actually, structure, if you look, is actually modularized and loads itself using itself. Okay, so I figured I got to practice what I preach. Originally, structure was like one big long nasty file, and then I said, well, how can I be preaching modularization and separation of files if people look at my source and say, well, this is just one big nasty file. So, anyways, that's neither here nor there. So now let's go to our actual project. And the only structure-related files that you need in your web application is going to be a config.js and a manifest.js. Okay, they do need to exist. You actually don't have to have anything in them. If they don't exist, structure is going to cry about it and things aren't going to work right. Okay, so uh, you do not actually, the default is that they have to be, the default is that they're named config.js and manifest.js. You can override that. I'm not going to get into that right now because that's some more advanced uses. And the default is that they have to be in the same folder as whatever script tag, wherever the script tag is. So in this case, my script tag exists in structure-test.html. Notice that config and manifest are in the same directory. Again, I could override that. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to keep things nice and simple. So now that we have made sure that our script tag has everything it needs, we're going to load our application. We will notice that the execution went right. We can go and look and see what structure actually loaded up. It loaded up the core. Because again, structure is structured using itself, it has its own core config. It has its own core manifest. It loads up a module. This is the module that handles the dependency resolution, a utility module, and then you can see here, now it's loaded up our project, our specific project's config and manifest. Of course, they don't have anything in them, so our project didn't do anything. All right, so let's go ahead and make our project do something. So going into the project directory, the files we're going to use are in this modules directory, and they're going to be d.js and c.js, okay? So what this module returns, it just returns a piece of data, okay? And an object with another object called data, and all data is a string saying whoa, okay? So our module D here, notice, it requires C. So it takes what C returned, and then we're going to go ahead and output that data value to the console. And then we also do a little bit of DOM manipulation. We set the inner text of a div here, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the require function. So every module you define using structureJS module is passed by default a function called require. And require is the interface that you use to actually make use of your dependencies, to make use of modules that have come before you. In our manifest, there's really only one thing you can do in your manifest, and that is declare files. So to tell structure, I'm using this file, load this file, and then you could tell structure the order. You could tell structure the desired order, but here's the beauty. Structure handles, if you have a really complex dependency chain, structure will actually handle that for you. There's automatic dependency resolution, okay? So let's go ahead and tell structure that we're going to use the file, because remember, now structure will load up files. It loads files. That's what it does. Your files do not have to contain modules, but if they do, uh, once structure sees this, because C module is a function, right? So once structure sees this module function, it's going to execute this function, and this function is what puts the module D into sort of the dependency chain and gives other modules access to it through the require function, okay? So remember, our modules are located in the modules directory. So we're going to say, okay, load up modules D. Just like require.js, we do not use file extensions when we're declaring files. Okay. Now, and we're going to use C. Now you may be saying, wait a second, didn't D depend on C? So doesn't C need to come first? That's absolutely correct. But one of the reasons that I wrote the dependency resolution algorithms is I did not want you to have to worry about, okay, well, C comes first. And then, so imagine my project gets really big and I have a whole bunch of declarations. And then now I say, oh crap, this file here needs to be used by this guy. So I need to move this in here. And then you end up shuffling all sorts of stuff around and it leaves room for errors. And, it's just not very efficient. Okay. So you use this syntax here to declare dependencies by a second parameter, which has to be an array, to declare a statement. And in that parameter, you go ahead and tell structure that, hey, okay, the D module needs the C module to be loaded before it. So C is a dependency of D. Okay, so that's it. We have now, when we reload our application, we're going to see that these two files are going to be loaded, and they're going to be loaded in the order that makes my dependency chain work. So this is pretty much the most basic structureJS application you can make, right? So let's move on to something a bit more advanced.